Any Python program terminates as soon as it encounters an error. In Python, an error can be a syntax error or an exception. Syntax errors occurs when the parser detects an incorrect statement. For example, print 100 by 10. When we execute this, we got syntax error. Here, the arrow indicates where the parser ran into the syntax error. Since we have added one extra bracket, we got syntax error. When we remove this, we will get out of the syntax error. Now let's consider another case. Let's print 100 by 0. Let's run this. We got an exception. This time you run into exception error. Note that there is no syntax related issues. The print statement is pretty much fine. Our code is looking good. The last line of the message indicates what type of exception error we ran into. In this case, it is zero division error. We can also raise an exception. Let's say our code is getting input from the user and it is expecting a value always less than 5. We can throw exception if we receive value more than 5. Here is an example. Um, let's say x equal to 10. Our condition is x must be less than 5. In case if x greater than 5, you can raise an exception. RAISE is a keyword to raise an exception. XEP1 exception x value must be less than 5. Let's run this. So now we assigned x value as 10. During this case, the condition satisfied and we raised an exception. So the program comes to a halt and displays our exception to the screen, offering clues about what went wrong. Raising exceptions are mostly useful during validations. Now we don't want to terminate our program due to exceptions. The try and except block will help us here. So the syntax is try colon the block of code to be executed and which should be scanned for exceptions. Normal block of code now followed by except. So the block of code to be executed when any exception occurs. We put our normal code under try block. It executes the code normally and skips the except block of code if there is no exception. In case of exception, Python executes the block of code given under except keyword. Remember that try and except blocks are meant for exceptions, not for syntax errors. So now let's see an example. X equal to 10, y equal to 2, try result equal to x by y. We are doing arithmetic operation here and print the result. So now if everything is okay, this block of code will be executed. In case if there are any exceptions, we have to define our except block. Except print execution failed. Now let's run this. So now everything is fine. We got the result and except block is skipped. Let's say 0. So now there is an exception, arithmetic exception, division by zero exception. Because of that, the program got halt and except block get into execution. So one thing is not clear here. We don't know what exception occurred here. We'll modify our except statement to know the exception details. So what we're supposed to do, we should provide the exception is going to occur. Now zero division error as error. Now print error. When you run this, we got to know what exception happened and the message will be printed. So this is very simple example. In real time, we write multiple lines of code under try block, and always there is a possibility to get more than one exception type. How can we handle that? So even that can be handled by providing another except block, except file not found error as error. Now print error. So you can add another block of except. The appropriate except block of code will be executed based on the type of exception. Now let's see how else block will fit into try and except blocks. In Python, using the else statement, you can instruct a program to execute certain block of code only in the absence of exceptions. Let's modify here else inside else block. Now, so actually the else block of code will be executed if there is no exception caught under the try block. In case of exception, the else block also will be skipped. Let's run and see the result. So here we got an exception, so we don't see else block execution. Let's change here. Now run. There is no exception. The control reached to else block. The print statement under else block got executed. Now let's talk about finally block. Finally block will be executed always irrespective of exception occurs or not. In general, we use finally block for cleanup related activities after executing try block. Let's modify this block of code. Finally, print cleanup related activities always here. So now when you run this without exception, the finally block got executed. Now let's make the change and run it. Now there is an exception, still the finally block got executed. So this is about exception handling in Python. Thanks for watching and please subscribe to the channel.